shed no tears.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 20 musicians who died too soon. For this list, we'll be looking at 20 great musicians who were taken from us much too soon. Whether they were cultural icons and/or brilliant songwriters, these artists left behind an amazing body of work that won't be forgotten. Did we forget one of your favorite musicians? Let us know in the comments below. Selena. Known by her first name, Selena Quintanilla Perez achieved a huge amount of praise as a Tejano pop star. In her early 20s, she conquered the 90s as the leading fixture of the genre. In her work with her family's group, Selena y los Dinos, the performer grew into a pioneering female artist. Across 5 solo albums, the singer proved herself as a prolific talent in only a few years. In a shocking event in 1995, she was murdered by the former manager of her boutique. Clearly headed for greater success, the vocalist remains an important figure in Latin pop music. Chester Bennington. Chester Bennington was never one to hold back in his music. Giving every track his all, the singer's trademark scream delivered amazing performances throughout his storied career. His lead role in Linkin Park connected him with a fan base that followed him and the band through various incarnations. His contribution to anthems like In the End made him a generational voice of rage and emotional fury.
What it meant to be will eventually be a memory of a time I tried so hard and got so far.
Always fighting his dark side, he also spoke openly about his depression and substance use issues. Bennington's inner demons led him to take his own life in 2017. Even in his absence, he left behind many albums worth of incredibly personal music. Mac Miller. In the subgenre known as emo rap, Mac Miller's intimate lyrics tackled real-world issues and personal drug problems. In his teenage years, the artist began his career humbly at an independent label. These years showed tremendous promise for the performer and gave the public an early indication of his generational talent.
I got all the time in the world, so for now I'm just chilling. Plus I know it's a beautiful feeling.
He honed his craft on mixtapes until releasing a well-received debut album called Blue Slide Park. Throughout the decade, he doubled down on his success with unique rap releases. After dropping his 5th album, Swimming, the Pittsburgh native died from a drug overdose in the late 2010s. Through posthumous albums and other tributes, it's clear that his influence will live in general consciousness for a long time.
Do a little spring cleaning, I'm always too busy dreaming.
Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin supplied the late 60s with her endlessly powerful vocals. Covering classics like Me and Bobby McGee, the singer established herself as a nuanced and enviable voice.
Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing. That's all that Bobby left me.
Her time with Big Brother and the Holding Company brought her to national attention after a masterful appearance at the Monterey Pop Festival. By the age of 27, she had already provided her timeless renditions of the song Piece of My Heart and other big hits. It was at that same age that she would succumb to a drug overdose. She was only getting started in her life and career, having garnered the reception of most artists twice her age. Millions of record sales secured her status as a perennial rock favorite that will never fade away. Aaliyah. From a young age, Aaliyah already showed promise as a music superstar. Her arrival in the pop and R&B scene gave the industry a major boost in the late 90s. Through her early successes, she became a teenage icon in the late 20th century. Her platinum hits established her as a formidable singer, dancer, and cultural force. She also began an acting career in the early 2000s that showed tremendous potential. After filming a music video, the performer died in a plane crash just as she was reaching another huge milestone. Leaving behind an eclectic and self-assured catalog, the vocalist shined bright in her short life. Chris Cornell. Some would argue that Chris Cornell had the best voice in all of grunge. Working with hard rock band Soundgarden, the singer brought a highly tuned voice to heavy songs like Black Hole Sun and Rusty Cage. After taking a break from the band, he lent his talents to the rock supergroup Audioslave to further success. The performer prospered in any situation, bringing his soulful and one-of-a-kind tones to all of his music. When Soundgarden reformed, the vocalist was able to return to the act that made him a rock star. Like other frontmen of his generation, Cornell died tragically after battling depression on tour. Marvin Gaye. Among the great pillars of Motown, Marvin Gaye started his career working alongside great voices like Tammy Terrell. Continuing on with a historic solo work, his contributions to popular music were a never-ending treasure trove of classics.
I've been really trying, baby, trying to hold back this feeling.
His hit singles rose high in the charts as the performer explored important issues. Creating the concept album What's Going On, Gaye made powerful statements about everything from civil rights to the Vietnam War.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on, baby?
In his third successful decade, the artist was killed by his own father in 1984. To this day, his healing music provides a timeless look at the highs and lows of American society. Ritchie Valens. Ritchie Valens was the ultimate example of a teenage rock star in the late 50s. His tracks like La Bamba pushed early rock and roll to the next level, opening the doorway for other Chicano rockers. He also became an icon for Spanish-language music. Valens toured with Buddy Holly and Big Bopper, leading a new charge of talent that went on to influence decades of artists. In a huge tragedy for the musical world, the performer and his touring mates died in a plane crash.
He asked me again as we coming down the steps, he said, "You gonna let me fly in your place?" And that's when I reached in my pocket, pulled out a 50-cent piece, flipped it, it lay right here on the floor, and said, "Call it." He said heads, and it lit heads. The rest is history.
Even with his abbreviated career, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee made a monumental impact on his genre. Whitney Houston. It's fair to say that Whitney Houston is one of the most well-regarded talents in the history of popular music. From her hit singles in the 80s, Houston was an instant success during the decade. She also showed up with a fully formed voice that most singers could only dream about. This was never more apparent than on her finest track, I Will Always Love You. Despite her triumphs, substance use issues threatened to derail her career in the 21st century. Her drowning shocked the industry and provided a poignant tale of a once shining star. With many adoring fans, she'll be remembered for her amazing vocal performances that were unparalleled. Bob Marley. Synonymous with the genre, Jamaican artist Bob Marley defined reggae in the 70s. For those who don't even listen to reggae, it's impossible to deny the man's contributions to music history. His songs like Three Little Birds provide catchy beats and poetic lyrics.
Three little birds, it's by my doorstep, singing sweet songs.
In his many classic tracks, he revealed his outspoken beliefs that gave his tracks added depth and political weight. Deeply involved in Rastafarianism, he decided against traditional treatment for cancer and died in the early 80s. While some would rather reduce him to a t-shirt, his greater impact on pop culture extends far beyond any one artistic stroke.
Said he was fighting on a rival, fighting for survival.
Amy Winehouse. Over the course of 2 stellar studio albums, Amy Winehouse became one of the best new voices of the late 2000s.
You go back to her, I go back to.
Her blend of throwback pop and soul energized the music industry. Infusing her songs with a poignancy and attitude, her performances only made the writing even better. Winehouse always brought an authentic and compelling delivery to each of her tracks, especially her hit Rehab.
They try to make me go to rehab, I say no, no, no.
While her future in the business looked bright, her personal struggles got in the way. Her death from alcohol poisoning came on the cusp of her next great decade, but her greater legacy speaks for itself. The Notorious B.I.G. Christopher the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace lit up the East Coast hip-hop scene with his Rags to Riches storyline.
Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me.
His determined and inventive flow made him among the most influential rappers ever. Working with P. Diddy and Bad Boy Records, Biggie Smalls crafted a persona all his own. His album Ready to Die changed the music landscape with its autobiographical storytelling. With singles like Juicy and Big Papa, the MC's quick rhyme scheme stood as some of the greatest of the decade.
You gon' be here for a while, I'm gon' call my crew, you gon' call your crew, we can rendezvous at the bar around 2.
His unsolved murder rocked the hip-hop world in a case that still puzzles investigators. At only 24, Wallace made a name for himself as one of the best New York rappers that only continued through posthumous releases. Tupac Shakur. West Coast rapper Tupac Shakur undeniably left a mark on hip-hop in the 90s. Not only did he offer another side of the genre, his poetic approach to lyrics produced an emotional side to his output. His pieces like Changes spoke truth to the black experience, while songs like Dear Mama connected him to his family life.
Don't you know we love you, sweet
Dear mama.
Please, no one above.
Outside of his songwriting, he showcased his tremendous range in a wide scope of artistic ventures. His acting roles in Poetic Justice and Juice revealed his greater potential as a charismatic leading man.
What's the matter, Ryan? Nothing to say? That's because you know I'm right.
In his untimely death, he became a mythical figure that transcended rap. Buddy Holly. In his 20s, Buddy Holly revolutionized rock and roll as one of its first successful singer-songwriters. His tracks like Peggy Sue and That'll Be the Day became 50s classics that catapulted him to stardom.
Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day when you make me cry.
With his signature glasses, Holly brought together elements of country, rock, and pop music into an influential style. That all came to an end when he died in a plane crash with Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. His sound went on to inspire the likes of many acts, including the Beatles, inspiring most of the great 60s bands. To this day, he's commonly referred to as one of the best and most influential early rockers.
If you knew Peggy Sue, then you know why I feel blue.
Ian Curtis. Heading up the post-punk group Joy Division, Ian Curtis supplied his deep voice and haunting lyrics to the band's music. Releasing only one studio album during his lifetime, Curtis and his bandmates engineered classic recordings over a short period. Their album Unknown Pleasures became an iconic and important release for all genres of rock. On the eve of their American tour, the lead singer ended his own life after dealing with depression and epilepsy. Not long after, their follow-up album Closer came out to great success and another example of the vocalist's great artistry. Inspiring legions of followers, the group's limited discography didn't keep them from influencing many musicians over the next several decades. Michael Jackson. Known as the King of Pop, Michael Jackson developed his talents from a young age in the Jackson 5. Working with his highly successful family, the performer became a standout and explored music and a hugely popular solo career. From Thriller to Dangerous, Jackson shattered records as one of the biggest recording artists ever. His controversial public trials threatened his reputation, while he developed a prescription substance disorder behind the scenes. During the planning of another massive tour, the icon died from an accidental overdose. His lasting contributions to pop music and personal life still sparks debate to this day. Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain's influence on alternative rock and music in general can't be overstated. His work with Nirvana combined the finer points of punk, alternative, and pop into one distinct combination. After the group's second album, Nevermind, they set off a cascade of success that brought renewed interest to the Seattle grunge movement. Cobain's mental health journey and substance use disorder inspired incredibly passionate songwriting. Before the release of their third record, the singer found himself struggling to cope with his reluctant celebrity status. He took his own life after a break from touring in one of the darkest moments for 90s music. As the guiding voice of his generation, the immediate outpouring of grief over his death confirmed his iconic status. Jimi Hendrix. Take a look at any list of the best guitar players and you'll likely find Jimi Hendrix at or near the top. With his trademark Stratocaster, the musician delivered a revolutionary spin on rock that caused a massive shift in the genre's sound. His defining work with the Jimi Hendrix Experience was nothing short of awe-inspiring, with songs like Purple Haze becoming classics. At Woodstock, his rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner put the ultimate stamp on pop culture at the end of the decade. His life was cut short in 1970 after a drug-induced incident, making him another in a line of cultural heroes that died at 27. In only a few years, the artist entered the pantheon of all-time rock musicians. John Lennon. John Lennon was one of the most famous artists of any era. With the Beatles, his songwriting partnership with Paul McCartney produced one of the great songbooks in music history.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
After the group dissolved, he pursued a solo career on his own terms. He also promoted peace with his activism in music, such as the indelible single, Imagine.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
With a poetic and raw approach to his art, Lennon produced a body of work that holds up to this day. On a tragic night in 1980, the singer was shot outside his New York City apartments. Through his own amazing contributions to music and the work of his widow Yoko Ono, the performer's important efforts won't be forgotten. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Freddie Mercury. There's only a handful of frontmen in rock music with the universal appeal and charisma of Freddie Mercury. His work with the band Queen remains so legendary that his image and voice stands alone. With a dynamic and unprecedented vocal range, his operatic performances push the art form to a whole other level. As a live performer, the singer truly captivated audiences from clubs to the stage at Live Aid. All of his success only grew throughout the 70s and 80s. but he received a serious setback when he was diagnosed with AIDS. His death in 1991 might have brought his life and career to an end, but his iconic persona never dwindled. Check out these other clips from Watch Mojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.